Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between tall mountains and thick forest, there lived a little girl named Mikole. Mikole was a sweet and kind-hearted child, but she had a difficult life. Her parents had both died when she was very young, leaving her as an orphan. She was taken in by her father's brother, who was a farmer. Her uncle had a wife, Mikole's stepmother, who was not kind at all. Mikole's stepmother was a bitter woman who had never wanted children of her own. She saw Mikole as a burden and treated her poorly. She made Mikole do all the chores in the house, cooking, cleaning, fetching water from the river, and working in the fields. Mikole never complained, even though she was often hungry and tired. She missed her parents very much, but she tried to stay strong. The village where Mikole lived was a peaceful place, but it had one dark secret. In the forest nearby, there was an ancient shrine dedicated to an evil deity. This deity was known for its cruelty, and the villagers feared it greatly. Every year, the villagers would leave offerings of food, cloth, and other valuable items at the shrine to keep the deity satisfied. The offerings were meant to protect the village from the deity's wrath. But over time, the villagers began to neglect the shrine, believing the deity was no longer a threat. Mikole's stepmother, however, was not afraid. She thought the stories about the deity were just old tales meant to scare children. One day, as she was walking through the forest, she came across the shrine. It was old and covered in vines, but the statue of the deity stood tall and menacing. "These are just silly stories," she said to herself, laughing. "There's no such thing as an evil deity." Without a second thought, she took the offerings left at the shrine. "Why should I waste my good food on an old statue?" she thought. She carried the food and cloth back home and kept them for herself. That night, strange things began to happen. The wind howled louder than usual, and the animals in the forest became restless. The sky, which had been clear, suddenly grew dark, and thunder rumbled in the distance. The villagers, sensing something was wrong, gathered in the village square. They whispered among themselves, fearing the worst. The next morning, Mikole woke up early to start her chores. But as she walked through the house, she noticed that her stepmother was behaving strangely. Her eyes were dark, and her voice was cold. "Mikole," she hissed, "you will go to the forest today. You will take this basket and collect wood for the fire. Do not return until the basket is full." Mikole, although scared, obeyed her stepmother. She took the basket and headed into the forest. As she walked, she could hear the wind whispering through the trees. It sounded like voices, but she couldn't understand what they were saying. Suddenly, Mikole felt a chill run down her spine. She turned around and saw the statue of the evil deity standing in the middle of the path. Its eyes seemed to glow, and its stone face was twisted in anger. Mikole froze, too frightened to move. The deity spoke in a voice that echoed through the forest. "Why have you come to my forest, little one? Why do you disturb my peace?" Mikole trembled but found the courage to speak. "I am only here to collect wood for the fire. My stepmother sent me." The deity's eyes narrowed. "Your stepmother," it growled. "She has angered me. She has taken what is mine. Now, you must pay the price." Mikole's heart pounded in her chest. "Please," she begged, "I did not take anything. I am only an orphan. Please, spare me." The deity seemed to consider her words. After a long silence, it spoke again. "You are innocent, little one. but your stepmother is not. She must be punished for her greed. Mikole felt tears fill her eyes. She didn't want anyone to be harmed, not even her cruel stepmother. Please, she whispered, is there no other way? I will do anything. The deity was silent for a moment, then it said, there is one way. You must return what was taken, and you must leave an offering of your own. Mikole nodded quickly. I will do it, she promised. I will return the offerings and bring something from my own home. The deity looked at her closely. Very well, it said. But remember, child, if you do not keep your promise, I will come for you. With that, the deity disappeared, leaving Mikole alone in the forest. She ran back to the village as fast as she could. When she reached her house, she found her stepmother still acting strangely. Mikole knew she had to act quickly. She gathered the food and cloth that her stepmother had taken and brought them back to the shrine. She placed them at the feet of the deity's statue, then added a small doll that had once belonged to her mother. It was the only thing Mikole had left of her parents, but she knew she had to make a sacrifice. As soon as she placed the doll on the shrine, the wind stopped, and the forest became quiet. The sky cleared, and the dark clouds disappeared. Mikole knew the deity had accepted her offering. When she returned home, she found her stepmother lying in bed, exhausted but back to her old self. The dark look in her eyes was gone, and she seemed confused about what had happened. Mikole said nothing about her encounter with the deity, but she knew she had done the right thing. From that day on, Mikole's life began to change. The villagers, having heard about what happened, started to treat her with kindness and respect. Her stepmother, though still strict, was not as cruel as before. Mikole continued to do her chores, but she no longer felt so alone. The villagers often brought her food and gifts, and some even offered to help her with her work. As the years passed, Mikole grew into a strong and wise young woman. She never forgot the lesson she learned in the forest that day, that kindness and sacrifice could overcome even the darkest of evils. And the villagers, too, never forgot the importance of respecting the old ways and the powers that protected their village. And so, Mikole lived a good life, always remembering to be humble and generous, knowing that these were the qualities that could truly bring peace and happiness.